In this video, we're going to deal with operations with functions. We're going to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and eventually compose functions. First off, let's start out. It says you can add, subtract, multiply, or divide functions. For example, we're going to find f of x, which is this function, plus g of x. In order to add two functions, you're going to take f of x, which is 3x minus 7. And you're going to take g of x, which is 13 minus 2x. And in order to find f of x plus g of x, you're going to add them. You're simply combining like terms. That's all this is. Combine your 3x minus 2x, which gives you a 1x. A negative 7 and 13 gives you a positive 6, and you're finished. F of x plus g of x is simply the sum of the two. This new function is denoted as f plus g of x. So therefore you had your f of x, and g of x, so the two added together is now f plus g, and then the of x you can write out separate as well. Therefore all operations here we go. The sum of two functions, f plus g of x, we're simply, as we did in the last one, we're simply going to take f of x and we're going to add g of x to it. To subtract two functions, same thing. We're going to take f of x and we're going to subtract g of x. Now this is important. Since you're going to minus a whole function, this second function is going to have to be in parentheses when you do it. To multiply two functions, f times g of x, you're going to take the first function and multiply by the second. Now when you multiply two functions, you might have to FOIL it, you might have to distribute or something to that nature. And then f divided by g of x, that would be f of x divided by g of x. Now, notice the asterisk out here. You've got to be careful with f divided by g of x. And the reason why, and I'm going to put the asterisk out here, g of x cannot be 0 because you're dividing by g of x. The bottom of a fraction bar cannot be a 0. You cannot divide by 0. So let's do some of these. It's given that you have this f of x, this g of x, and this h of x. Find each function and indicate any restrictions in the domain. Now we're going to have restrictions when we're dividing by functions because of the whole bottom can't be 0. So to find f plus g, we're simply going to take f, x squared minus 8x plus 4, and we're going to add g, which is 4x minus 3. To do that, you simply combine like terms. X squared, negative 8 plus 4 is a negative 4x, and a 4 minus 3 is a positive 1, and you're done. Now, domain now. I'm going to list it down here. The domain of this function, if you're dealing, this is a parabola, there are no restrictions. The only time you're going to have restrictions is when there's division, because you have to be careful about division by 0. If there's radicals, you can't take the square root of a negative. So therefore, the domain here, all real values, all real numbers. Or we can list it like this. I like the looks of this better. Domain, negative to positive infinity. Next up, f minus h. Here's f, x squared minus 8x plus 4, minus, now you got to be careful, minus the whole h, not part of it, so let's put that h in parentheses. You can rewrite it if you need to, x squared minus 8x plus 4. Distribute this negative 1 to be a negative x and a negative 2. Combined like terms will be x squared, negative 8, negative 1 is a negative 9x. Positive 4 minus 2 is a positive 2. And again, your domain, all real numbers. There's no restrictions because there's no division or there's no radicals. H times G. H is x plus 2. And you're going to multiply that times G, which is 4x minus 3. Which is just a fancy way of saying FOIL these two things out. That's it. We're going to do x times both. That'd be 4x squared minus 3x. I'd like for y'all to get into a habit of combining these like terms as you're writing them down. 2 times 4x is a positive 8x, and you could have done that in your head and combined those. 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6. So you now have 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. So you multiplied a line times a line, because those are y equals mx plus b form, and you got a parabola. And the domain of any parabola is always going to be all real numbers. There's no domain restrictions. Now we have our restrictions, f divided by h. Our f is x squared minus 8x plus 4. And we're going to divide that by h, which is x plus 2. And we are going to have domain restrictions. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to go ahead and put that domain restriction. The only restriction I have on my domain, the bottom can't be 0. So therefore, a value of -2 would make the bottom 0. So I'm going to restrict that we cannot let x be -2. And you can actually leave your answer like this. You could try to factor it. So this is fine. If you would like to get some more practice, you could do this and actually divide it. Let's do that just to show you. 1, -2, -10, 20, 24 is your remainder. So you could write that as this is the constant, this is the x. So also an answer would be x minus 10 plus 24 over x plus 2 if you actually wanted to divide it. So either one of those answers are acceptable. Number 5, h divided by g. Our h value is x plus 2. And we want to divide that by g, which is 4x minus 3. Let's start with our domain. You cannot divide by 0, so the bottom of this fraction cannot equal 0. The value that's going to make it equal 0 is 3/4. So therefore, x cannot equal 3/4, or you're dividing by 0. Next up, if you would like to divide this, you could use some synthetic division, long division, something like that, just for extra practice, or you can leave your answer as this. Okay, number 6, f times g. F is x squared minus 8x plus 4. G is 4x minus 3. Domain, there's no division, no radicals, so we have no restrictions. Domain can be anything. Now let's just multiply this out. X squared times everything, if you want to work it in this order, x squared times 4x will be 4x to the third. X squared times -3 is -3x squared. -8x times everything would be a -32x squared and a positive 24x. And then 4 times everything would be a positive 16x and a -12. Combine like terms, you get 4x to the third. You can mark them out as you combine them. -3, -32 is a -35x to the second. 24 and 16 is a positive 40x. And then -12, and again, you have no domain restrictions. Okay, in this next part, I'm going to explain to you why understanding that f of x plus g of x and f plus g of x is the same thing might be important to you. So on number 7, it says find f plus g and then plug in -2. So let's first off find f plus g. So that's going to be f, 2x squared minus x minus 12, plus g, which is x plus 7, and let's add them together. That would be the x's cancel, and that would be a 2x squared minus 5. That would be f plus g. Now f plus g of 5, or -2, excuse me, is going to be this function with -2 plugged in. So that'd be 2 times -2 squared, which is 4, minus 5. That's going to be 8 minus 5, or 3. This is the exact same thing. Remember, by definition, f plus g of -2 is the same thing as f of -2 plus g of -2. The way we described it was f plus g of x is the same thing as f of x plus g of x. So what does that mean? That means that you can find f plus g and then plug it in like we did, or you can actually plug it in first, find f of -2. Let's say that's going to be 2 times 4 is 8, minus -2, that's 10 minus negative or minus 12 would be a -2, plus, and then do the same thing over here and you get 5. So when you plug it in, you get a -2. Plug it in here, you get a 5. You could just do it that way and then just add, which might be a little bit simpler sometimes. So therefore, f minus g of 8, you can do 2 different ways. You can find f minus g first, or you can just simply do f of 8 minus g of 8, plug them in, and then subtract them. F of 8 will be 2 times 64 is 128, minus 8 is 120, minus 12 is 108, minus g of 8 means take g of x, plug in 8, that'd be 8 plus 7, which is 15. 108 minus 15 is 93. Number 9, same thing. F times g of -1 means you can find f of -1 times g of -1. Plug it in individually. Plugging in -1 here gives you a -9 times. Plug in -1 to your g function gives you 6. So therefore, negative 9 times 6, this answer would be simply negative 54. Okay, number 10, we're asked to find f divided by g of 5. So therefore, one way of working it, probably the best way, is going to be find f of 5 and then divide it by g of 5. F of 5, we'll just come over here and just plug it up here. F of 5 would be 2 times 25, which is 50, minus 5, minus 12. That's 45 minus 12, which is 33, is f of 5, over g of 5 is simply 5 plus 7, which is 12. So 33 over 12, you can divide it if you'd like to, but it's going to be a decimal. So the best method is just going to be reduce the fraction, divide by 3, and divide by 3, and you get 11/4. Next up, we're going to be talking about compositions of functions. Another way to combine these functions is with a composition. Given f of x and g of x, the composition function, f of g is how we read that, is defined as f of g of x is f of g of x. So here we're going to take our f function, we're going to plug this in. Same way if I said find f of 2, that simply means plug in 2. Well, if I say find f of g of x, that means you're going to take out the x and you're going to plug this in. So let's do a few of these. Number 11. You're asked to find f of g, and what I like to do here first is actually write it as what it's equal to. F of g means f of g, which means I'm going to take my f function. Here's what f is. It's x to the third power plus 8. But in the place of that x, we're going to plug this in. We're going to plug in x minus 1. So here's your new function. So therefore, f of g, now let's clean it up. X minus 1 to the third, we've got to do, let's come over here to the side. X minus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. Let's multiply these two at a time. X minus 1 times x minus 1 to square a function. There's a shortcut. We can do x times x, which is x squared. Multiply x times negative 1 and double it, gives you negative 2x. And then negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. Then distribute the x. Will be x to the third minus 2x squared plus x. Distribute the negative 1 will be minus x squared plus 2x minus 1. So x minus 1 to the third, now we can combine our like terms over here, is x to the third. Combine negative 2 and negative 1 is negative 3x squared. Combine 1 and 2 gives you a positive 3x minus 1. And then you have your plus 8. So final answer, f of g is x to the, let me try again, x to the third power minus 3x squared plus 3x, and combine these and you get plus 7. Okay, number 12. Number 12, we're finding h of g. Again, I like to rewrite it, h of g. So I'm going to take my h function, which was 5x minus 3, and in the place of x, I'm going to plug in g, which was x minus 1. Now this one's a whole lot easier. All I have to do is distribute 5 times x, 5 times 1. And then combine my like terms, and h of g is going to be 5x minus 8. Number 13, f of h, we're going to take f of h. So we're going to take our f function. Let's go back up. Our f function was x to the third plus 8, x to the third plus 8. And in the place of the x, I'm going to plug in h, which is 5x minus 3. So again, we've got to do that 5x minus 3 to the third. That's going to take a second. 5x minus 3 times 5x minus 3 times 5x minus 3 again. You can use your shortcut for squaring this by multiplying 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15, and double it's negative 30x. And then negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Then multiply everything by 5x would be a 125x to the third, a negative 150x to the second, and a 45x. Then negative 75x squared, a negative 90x, and or that actually would be a positive 90x, and then negative 3 times 9 is a negative 27. And let's come over here to combine our like terms. And we're going to get 125x to the third. Combine your x squared gives you negative 225x to the second. Combine your x's gives you 135x. And then you have the minus 27, which you could actually go ahead and combine with the plus 8, and that's going to give you a minus 19. Now, a lot of people forget to bring down that 8. They'll cube this, but they won't bring that down, so let's not forget about that. Number 14. Let's erase this so I'll have a little bit more room. 13, we're finding g of f, which is g of f. So let's go back up. We're going to take g, which is x minus 1, x minus 1, and we're simply going to plug in f, which is x to the third minus, or x to the third plus 8. So you can see here when you plug that f in that really these parentheses aren't necessary, and all you got to do is combine your like terms and you get x to the third plus 7. So some of these are really super easy. Okay, finally we're doing some compositions and we're going to plug in some numbers. Here we're finding g of h of 2. So let's find g of h first. And I believe that might have been, let's see if we found it yet, and we have not. So g of h, let's write down what we're going to do. To find g of h, we're going to take g and we're going to plug in h. So our g function is x minus 1, x minus 1, and in the place of x, we're going to plug h, which is 5x minus 3. So that gives you 5x, really the parentheses are not necessary, so 5x minus 3 minus 1 is 5x minus 4. So g of h is equal to that, and you can call it g of h of x, but we're asked to find g of h and then plug in 2. So now that would be simply 5 times 2 minus 4, which is 6. Now again, there is an alternate method. G of h of 2 is the same thing as g of h of 2. So look what we got on the inside here. We could actually just find h of 2 and go back up. H of 2 would be very easy to find. H of 2 right here means take here and plug in a 2 for your x. That'd be 5 times 2 is 10 minus 3 is 7. So h of 2 is 7. So we could take out h of 2 and simply replace it with 7. And now find g of 7, which is 7 minus 1, which is the same 6, and takes up so much less room. So we'll work this one both ways as well. H of f means we're going to take h and we're going to plug in f. So let's take our h value, which is 5x minus 3. 5 times x minus 3, and in the place of that x, we're going to plug in f, which we see is x to the third plus 8. So cleaning that up, that'd be 5x to the third plus 40, and then you got to subtract 3 from that. So let's go ahead and just write that as plus 37, and that's h of f. So therefore, h of f of negative 6 means take that exact same thing, and now let's plug in negative 6. So that'd be 5 times negative 6 to the third, which is 5 times negative 216. Then we got to add 37 to it. 5 times negative 216 would be negative 1,080 plus 37, which is negative 1,043. Or again, the alternate method. We can simply find h of f of negative 6. Just read it from left to right. H of f of negative 6. So the first thing we're going to do is find f of negative 6. So let's go up here and take our f and plug in negative 6. And you get negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6, which is negative 216, plus 8 is negative 208. So this is now h of, take out this and put negative 208, which is what it's equal to. Then h of negative 208, we're going to take and plug in a negative 208 here, gives me negative 1,040 minus 3, which is negative 1,043, which is the same answer.